Okay, so this is gonna be the the vlog for today, daily update vlog. According to my recollection, it's been 2 weeks, so it's day 14 for this streak. Not really a major milestone for myself per se. I've gone through at this point like multiple 6 months Nofap time periods, but anyways, it's quite late. It's just a minute past 11. It's about, basically 11 p.m. And I finally, hiked on out here to record this. But, anyways, not much has really happened today. I'm still slogging through the Python boot camp. I got a few more, and then I'll be at the halfway mark. I'm just trying to maintain as much of a laser focus as I can, and I was thinking of going running, trying to get a physical workout routine going, and it's just, it's honestly just for like health's sake. I mean, I am doing my darndest to stick to a diet for weight loss, but the whole exercise thing is just to like feel good, feel decent. Because like I know that, if you start just letting yourself go physically, not working out, not exercising, not, engaging your different muscle groups, that sort of thing, like, it's really easy to end up in a spot where you got like severe health problems. And for most people, it starts in their mid to late 30s. And there's obvious reasons why, for most folks, it's like that's when all the sort of responsibilities and hassle and, rush of life is going on. What the heck? Sorry, I don't know if you heard that, but right in the middle of that sentence, sounds like somebody set off like a firework or two. But anyway, but yeah, it's like that's what I was planning on doing. I may still go ahead and do some crunches or some push-ups. Been having some muscle pain the last few days, but I think it's because I went and did some exercises. Not that many, honestly. Like 10 push-ups is not. It's not an actual it shouldn't cause any like severe exertion or pain or whatever, because it's just 10 push-ups. But I did that, and then I did about like 25 crunches or sit-ups. It's more like sit-ups actually, which again, is sort of a sign of like how out of shape I am. But I guess typically when you start up doing that kind of stuff, like your body goes through 2 to 3 day period where you may have some muscle pain and may feel like kind of like flu-like symptoms, but it's really just because you have been working out and your body hasn't been under that kind of tension or exertion for a while. And but yeah, I've been trying to do that kind of stuff again, for just physical health purposes. I do have some concern that I might have some conductive hearing loss. It's mostly my right ear. I get that whole sort of, you hear like you hear your heartbeat, that sort of thing, like pa-pum, 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 that sort of deal. Usually only happens after I listen to some music, especially if I, turn it up, let's say halfway to, you have 0 to 100, let's say, halfway up or further up than that. But if I listen to anything like way lower than that, I usually don't get that. So maybe it's just a matter of like the eardrum getting stretched out and it's having to readjust. And like if it stayed at that, stretched out level for long enough, then maybe there'd be a tear or a hole. I don't know if there is a tear or a hole in my eardrum in my right ear, but it's a concern of mine for a number of reasons. But I think I definitely want to dedicate myself to just not really listening to music anymore. I like to go through a long enough stretch, like I've gone through these stretches of like Nofap, and I have seen a lot of positive benefits, but I also want to get rid of music, not because of any sort of, religious or spiritual thing. There are some religious and spiritual groups out there which consider listening to music to be like a sin or to be spiritually damaging, especially, certain kinds of music. I mean, the whole like kind of the nature of like, let's say, secular music, so to speak. he'll look at that and see that's like sinful or leading people towards sin because of the content, so to speak. But whether that's true or not, I think that's kind of like my mustache. Anyways, I think that's kind of sort of subjective, and I don't know if one could even quantify something like spiritually damaging or sinful, but that's neither here nor there. I'm more concerned with like hearing loss, and also sort of like I think I've talked about in the past, or the influence on your sort of your mental emotional states, your mental health, depending on what kind of music or content you might be consuming, that sort of deal. But all that being said, like that's one of those things I want to like be removing from my life, and I think maybe I may start keeping track of that. I know Fitzgerald Brownie's done sort of like these, I'm gonna stay away from social media for a week, or I'm gonna try to stay away from for a month. Depending upon your definition of social media, that sort of stuff. Like he'll do those sorts of things in addition to Nofap, in particular, because as from what I've gathered, he'll say, or he's of the opinion that correct me if I'm wrong, but that engaging with social media is oftentimes like what will lead him to like relapsing to PMO. And maybe it's sort of of the mind that if he removes that, then it removes the majority of the triggers or sources of motivation or what have you to be, engaging in PMO. And that could possibly be some of the case with me, but also, I don't know. It's sort of like me listening to certain songs and such. It's like it not only reminds me of certain things, like stuff that I don't want to really be engaging with, but it's going to sound weird. It's kind of sound weird, but oftentimes like I'll think back to certain moments in life and be like, oh, maybe if I'd introduced so and so to this music or so, they would have thought different of me. Or it could have been an avenue into either making friendships or, or sort of changing some girl's opinion of me or something of that nature. And I'll sort of imagine myself putting that music on in some sort of social setting and it kind of turning out, people hearing it and going like, hey, kind of like, hey, that's a pretty good song there. Like, who is that? And that lead into a conversation about, one of my favorite bands or, whatever the case may be, and I'll be listening, I'll be like cranking that music up, and it's like obviously it's damaging my hearing or damaging my ear, but I'm sort of drifting off and thinking about that, and like I don't want to be getting into those sorts of thought loops anymore, and I definitely don't want to be doing damage to my hearing, especially with the stuff that I want to do in the future, like get debt free, have enough money to do what I want to do, and it's like, okay, what if I want to go off camping or hiking or hunting or fishing, off in the wilderness somewhere? Like, it's sort of interesting, but it's sort of like the more you remove yourself from society and you go off on some adventure, you go off into the wilderness or so, it's like those baseline abilities and such become that much more important and relevant, And I would not want to have damaged my senses, talking about something very fundamental and visceral. I would not want to have damaged those so much that I couldn't go out and do that. It's kind of like why I want to get into shape. It's like if you want to go hike up a mountain or so, even if it's just for the view, just so you can look out the side of the mountain and have this great view and be able to take all these nice pictures and whatnot. I mean, you got to be able to make it up the mountain, And yeah, there are cases where people can, I guess, go fly in a helicopter and all that, but like, if you just want to do that in the bare bones, basic sort of classic sense of I hiked up this mountain, here's this nice view, and I get to take pictures or whatever, have these memories, it's like you got to be able to physically do that. So you got to get in shape, you got to take care of your cardiovascular health, you got to take care of your knees, your legs, your back, etc. And so something like that, that's why I want to really take care of a lot of this stuff. And man, those things, like, they're concerns of mine, and the dreams I have, they're dreams of mine. And I may never get to share them with anyone, I may never get to really have that, woman in my life I get to share it with and all that sort of stuff, but I still want those things. Right now, thinking about this, I'm remembering, like, a dream I had last night. Like, I don't know why my mind has to do this stuff to me at these times, but it was sort of an amalgamation of memories from just, like, going to class, or, having exams or quizzes on campus, and then, like, being, like, uh, being so worried or concerned, like, when you wake up in bed and you're like, wait, what time is it? Oh, am I late to class? Did I miss the exam? Did I miss the quiz? Etc., etc. And then showing up in class, and then the girl who I had one-itis for in college being there, and, like, obviously, dreams being dreams, like, it's sort of like, people say, only in my dreams, or only in your dreams, or, it's a dream come true, or I wish my dreams would come true. And it's sort of like, it was one of those dream scenarios where, like, she actually liked me, and she was just, like, fawning over me, and, nothing sexual happened. It was more like romantic, feelings and interactions, and it was like she was genuinely into me, and, like, leaning in, and etc., etc. We were having this conversation about different things, and it was like, almost came with that, oh, did she have a boyfriend or not? And then it was like, it's almost like she, like, dumped him in front of me or something like that. I was wanting to be my girlfriend and blah, 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 And I don't know why I'm thinking of that right now, or that means anything to me, especially enough, to be, like, discussing this sort of stuff. But I think some of it perhaps has to do with, like, watching a bit of Alex's latest video, talking about sort of his breakup and how things went down. I'd have to watch the rest of it, but maybe that's kind of like why I'm thinking about the dream I had. But I think a lot of it is just, like, sort of reflecting on the way I think about life, and the way I thought about life for the last, like, let's say since 2017, where it's sort of been this idea of, like, having your safe world theory come crashing down around you, and then trying to sort of build a life after that, and realizing that, life does go on, and you'll probably always have that hole in your heart, or you'll have that sort of pain there, or whatever, those old wounds. But life does go on, and you sort of struggle, and, I sort of jumbled up in thoughts in this video. A lot of it is sort of that struggle of, like, trying to find a purpose, and trying to chase that purpose, and build something around that, and I still have these dreams. And I mean, like, literal dreams. I don't mean dreams in the sense of, like, aims or goals or a purpose. I mean, I literally still have these dreams about, like, and it's almost like, about these, what I guess folks in sort of the red pill community would refer to as, like, your blue pilled ideals, or your blue pilled fantasy. It's still there. And it's something that I gotta tell myself isn't real, and it was never attainable, and it was never really what I thought it was, etc., 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 Because there was that dream that I once had about finding a girl like the one I knew in college, one I obsessed about for 3.5 years, and I still, I know, like, she probably doesn't think about me, or if she thinks about me in a negative sense, or just indifferent or whatever. But, I still think about her. And it was this whole, like, dream of, like, finding a girl like that, and being sort of the hero who would, rescue her from her sadness, her loneliness, her lack of excitement, her stress and anxiety. I'd be that hero, and then we'd, be together in a relationship, and we'd build a life together, and I'd graduate, she'd graduate, we'd, both be engineers, and we'd, be doing all these amazing things, and we'd both be, spiritual, religious, practicing types, but very much also kind of in tune with the contemporary world. And at least have a sense that we were like living for some sort of grand overarching tradition or path or purpose, together and all that sort of stuff. And for the longest time, I thought that girl was like my ex-girlfriend. And in many ways, I kind of thought it was like the other girl. And maybe for a time, she kind of was that type. And I could have really felt like a man with a capital M if I'd, done things the right way. But so much of my life after that has been like feeling like that purpose was either taken from me or I destroyed it myself, and then trying to build something out of the ashes, out of the ruins, out of the rubble, of seeing that whole world just come crashing down into bits and pieces. And my best days are kind of when I bury myself in whatever I'm working on, and I try not to think about certain things too much. But man, it's kind of sad because not just myself, I see this with other guys. You have a lot of young guys in their 20s and 30s out there who have a whole ton of potential, but they end up wasting it. They end up destroying that. In some cases they take a permanent solution to a temporary problem because it's sort of like when life, reality, the truth, whatever comes along and smacks you upside the head and proceeds to demolish your sort of safe world model bit by bit by bit. The girl you thought was, a virginal, pure, religious girl, she turns out, she either turns out to be, or she decides she's going to irrevocably change by going off the path and becoming well, I can't throw that term out there because it's considered not kosher to shame a certain demographic for any of their decisions, but see a girl like that go off on that path, so to speak, take that sort of turn, or whatever else it might be. I mean, it could be like losing family members, it could be losing your job, it could be getting sick, it could be ending up homeless, any manner of things, I think a lot of guys, once that happens, you call it being zeroed out, or you can call it being zeroed out. It's sort of like not knowing how to bounce back from that. That's for one thing. And for another thing, just dealing with human nature in general, but for most guys, it's like, what was it? There's a saying that there are three things that, and I know it's it's a traditional saying. I think it's from one of the lands of my forefathers. Let's just put it that way. I'm not going to name which land, but that men obsess over three things. It's gold, women, and land. And it's for most men, it's okay, dealing with female nature. It's, there's dealing with human nature in general, or female nature in particular, but the dark side of those. And sort of not being able to really come to grips with it, when you got a girlfriend and she's the one who dumps you, she's the one who breaks up with you, she's the one who cheats on you, she's the one who ends things, and not being able to come to grips with that, and partially, obviously some of it's having certain expectations as a guy that, it's almost like, it's almost like when you have a job and you get fired, you get laid off or so, and it's like, okay, expecting them to, like, give you a list of, unless it's so obvious as to why you got fired, giving you a list of bullet points as to, okay, here's why we decided to end your employment. That's the deal. And expecting sort of the woman to be willing and able to go and do that. And I think one of the harshest truths, and this is sort of the thing that I think this is one of the big things that eats away at me so much, and I think it eats away at a lot of guys. And maybe it's like why so much of what happened in the past. I mean, if it happened, it's in the past, obviously, but happened in the past few years, let's say, to be more particular. Why so much? Why that stuff still keeps coming up in my thoughts and my dreams and so on. And Rollo Tomasi, I think, has sort of a really like concise term for it. He calls, I think it's called the Warbride Syndrome or Warbride trait, or not even like, I think he does use the word syndrome, but I think it's more like, or mentality, but it's that sort of ability to, like, it's almost like a light switch, and other guys refer to it as a light switch effect, or light switch behavior. But it's that whole idea, that ability to, like, go from being, let's say, hot for you, or feeling really strongly about you. Could be positive, could be negative, but we'll use positive for the sake of the argument. That girl's like hella into you, or she's like uber into you, she's way into you, and then suddenly, wait, where'd she go? Oh, she disappeared. Why did she disappear? Oh, well, she's not into you anymore. Well, what do you mean she's not into me? How could she do that? How could she break up with me? How could she jump in bed with the other guy? How could she ... And, man, I've had conversations with women about this sort of stuff, in particular, let's say my sister, and I'll always get this impression from them, like, not even just an impression, like, they'll literally say it that, oh, guys are the ones who can turn their emotions on and off like that, guys are the ones who can drop a girl just like that, and or drop someone just like that and just walk away and not care and blah blah blah. And it's like, obviously, like, for one thing, they don't know what they're talking about because they're not men. They don't experience life like we do. They don't experience our angle of things, or angle on things. But it's something that women are perfectly capable of doing. And, it's kind of like saying, like, when they're done with you, they're done with you. And it is something that's really hard to grapple with because, it's sort of like all the things that girl said or did to me in college. And, it was more than just the whole, oh, she got with another guy and they're dating and they're probably sleeping with each other and having sex and, going to parties and getting drunk together and blah, blah. It's more than just a jealousy thing or a moral indignation sort of thing. Like, there was the aspect of, like, of her sending her goons after me. And I had these memories burned into my mind, so to speak, into the ledger of my mind, into the ledger of my memory. These events are burned into that. And I remember those moments, where it was, like, clear, like, she was orchestrating stuff against me, to get other classmates, obviously guys who were, let's just be honest, simps, beta orbiters. Don't worry, I'll go, give him a bunch of crap, I'll go harass him, I'll beat him up, I'm a good man, or I'm your man, or whatever the heck. But, I have those memories, and so much of that is the stuff that has an emotional impact on me. But it's sort of like looking at that and realizing that, like, to her, she probably doesn't even remember that sort of stuff, or it's buried in her memory somewhere. But like, it's not of enough of importance that it's almost like I would have to like literally go up to her and be like, "You remember this, that, and the other," and then paint the picture to her, and then she'd, "Oh yeah." And it's like all that stuff didn't like mean anything to her. It was like meaningless. And all the events that occurred, I mean, heck, even if she had sex with the boyfriend, and let's say it was the guy she lost her virginity to, I mean, the next day she wakes up and that's that, Doesn't really mean anything. Doesn't really mean anything. But oh, it would mean so much to me, would affect me so much emotionally, and even just like in terms of physical, mental health. And that's the kind of thing that'll like eat away at me. That's like, oh, it didn't mean anything. And there's that desire as a guy. There's that desire as a guy, as a man, for meaning, for purpose, for this to have had some sort of like weight behind it. And maybe that's another reason why I personally don't let go of a lot of things from the past, because I look at that stuff as motivation. Like, oh, this girl thought I wasn't worth it, or that I was a loser or a creep or a weirdo or whatever the heck. And, wanting to, like, 5-10 years in the future, they find out about me and I'm rich and I'm, wealthy, and I'm, got all these advanced degrees and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm living the life, and almost being motivated by spite or by a desire to prove something. And if people were to ask me like, oh, why you do all this stuff? And it's like, if I were to try to explain why, it would sound like crazy talk to a lot of people. And to others, it would just be like perplexing. Like, it just, not just crazy. They wouldn't even necessarily have a strong emotional reaction to it, but it'd be like, that doesn't make any sense, man. You gotta let go, man. You gotta let go. Well, why haven't you let go yet? And all of that, I think, is perhaps what affects a lot of guys during a breakup. Is sort of like, when she's done with you, she's done with you. That light bulb effect. How could she just be so heartless, like that song. How could you go from meaning everything to her to meaning nothing to her? Like a light bulb being switched off. How could she not have the quote unquote what you might want to consider, well, and this is very subjective, but people will say, the common decency, when, saying it's common decency, labeling it as common, is making a lot of assumptions about the world. And, how could she not have the common decency to almost like give me a bullet point list of like reasons why she ended the relationship or walked away or cheated on me or whatever. And it's like, it's kind of like the saying, that common sense isn't so common. It's like common decency isn't so common. Because, again, thinking back to that series of videos I did on the concept of true love, it's like living in a world where, and honestly, like a lot of this stuff, it's almost like it's been going on for ages in different societies and civilizations, but it's almost like, in our current cycle of civilization, it's like we've gotten to a point where, yet again, not to sort of repeat myself in a series of videos, but it's almost like, sorry, my nose is kind of stuffy, but it's almost like we've gotten to a point where folks feel they can get away with certain things, like I've said in the past, if you were living out on the frontier back in the, let's say, the 1700s, 1800s, 1600s in America, let's say, or you were living out on the steppes in, Russia or Mongolia or one of the Central Asian countries, where whether it was on the frontier in America or out on the steppes, let's just say, any day of the week, really, you could have something go wrong majorly. It could be getting attacked by some, barbarian horde riding up over the hills, or it could be perhaps having some encounter with hostile natives, or it could be a disease, it could be the weather, it could be anything. And you live in a situation like that, like the ties of friendship, fealty, family, that sort of stuff is not just, feel good, this and that. It's like that's your survival. Like you have to have other people around to take care of you, or to work with you, or to build with you, or to fight alongside you, or to work alongside you in order to survive. And when you increasingly live in a world where, increasingly, I'm trying to use proper word order, but you live in a world where increasingly it's like you can just survive. You can just live. You might not be living like a king or a prince, emperor, a wealthy aristocrat or member of the gentry or whatever, upper class, but you can at least survive without very much effort, and to a relatively decent age, 50s, 60s, 70s, perhaps even your 80s, if you do things right, or more than that. That whole pressure of, survival and needing to sort of keep the peace goes away. And a lot of this sort of stuff is that, feeling safe and secure and being able to treat people like that, for one thing. But another thing is, to sort of return back to the whole discussion of like breakups and such, a lot of it is just like female nature, the dark side of it, and you could expand that, I suppose, if you wanted to be like that. You could probably expand that discussing human nature in general, but there's that whole like Warbride mentality of like, okay, my old guy was killed, and there's this new guy here, and I need to get with him so I can survive. I gotta forget about the old guy. He's dead and gone, sort of thing, And when it comes to like breaking up, it's like I said, when they're done with you, they're done with you, and it is like you're dead to them. And if they feel that they need to like explain things to you, again, it's like Rollo will say, that women want a guy who just gets it. Doesn't need to be, sat down and talked to and have things explained to him as to, why she likes him or why she doesn't like him, or why she's, happy with him, mad with him, whatever, that he just kind of gets that, okay, here's what's going on, and of course, the irony is, of course, that, men have to become. They're not born like that. They have to become. They have to go through trial and tribulation. They have to, someone said they have to do the 99 out of 100 things. And they have to, let's say they have to try 100 times, and 99 times it's all the wrong times, and then the 100th time it's like, okay, now I got it. Now I got the results I'm looking for, and I know what to do now because I learned all the things not to do. Which oftentimes for guys leads to having to go through a lot of trauma, and it sucks, But yet again, I have to remind myself of this, that it's all part of the process. But it is, it is a process, and I think another thing to take into consideration is the fact that on like a neurochemical level, and this is again, a lot of this I'm repeating a lot of things that Rollo has said, but I'm repeating them because I found them to be true, or at least applicable or useful, But when you're going through a breakup, it's kind of like you're breaking that sort of stimulus and response cycle. And it is something of an addiction in a sense. I mean, if you're in a relationship and you're in love, and she's giving you all the positive treatment, response, etc., stimuli, I mean, you are getting something of a neurochemical high with that. I think it's a dopamine release, And if she suddenly dumps you, you know, or cheats on you, and whatever, it's like you you get that sort of connection cut and broken, and you're no longer getting your dopamine hit. You're getting the opposite of it. You're getting basically, it's almost like you're getting withdrawal symptoms, and it takes some time to work your way out of that. I mean, like, the longer you've been with the girl, the longer the relationship's gone on, the longer you've had to get addicted to, her, everything, whatever the case may be. Um, the longer it'll probably take for you to recover from that. Like for me, there are days where I still think about my ex-girlfriend. And if I hear some music or so, especially if it's some like lovey-dovey song, or it's like a breakup song or so, it's like I end up having thoughts that I know are not rational thoughts, where it's like, oh, I shouldn't have dumped her, I shouldn't have this, if only I could have accomplished X, Y, Z, A, B, C, you know, I would have had what it would have taken to bring her over here and get married and have kids, and I'd be waking up in bed next to her, and then we'd have the kids, in their room, down the hallway, and blah blah blah, and it's like, making this sort of scenario in my head, which, rationally I know would never have happened. Even if I got married to her, just the way things were with her, it'd be like a divorce waiting to happen, and then I'd be truly screwed. And you want to talk about being bitter and broken up and depressed and sad about things, like that would that would have destroyed, I think, so much of what has been left of that semblance of my ability to drive myself and push myself and accomplish things. Like it would have been gone. It would have been gone just like that. I don't think there would have been any sort of recovering from that, just because getting divorced will take a lot out of me. Everything I've seen with guys, even like my uncle, who is no longer with us. I mean, it'll take a lot out of you, and I wouldn't want to have gone through that, But it's kind of my jumbled up thoughts here, and a lot of the reason I want to make this video is to really sort of point some stuff out from what I saw of Alex's video, because I see someone there who has a lot of potential, and maybe they just need to make some videos to get some stuff off their chest so they can sort of bounce back from all of this. But don't waste that potential. One thing I'm seeing with a lot of people I went to college with and such, it's like, I mean, in truth, in so many ways and words, they were truly losers, and obviously I beat myself up about them. I beat myself up about that girl, and while she does have an actual engineering title, job, and all that sort of stuff, like, from everything I can tell, she's extremely restricted and limited in terms of what she can do. And me making the moves I'm making right now with all this programming stuff and getting certifications and all that, like, in a very short period of time, given the industry I'm in, I mean, I could not only be out of debt, but be making like significant cash, and being able to live the kind of life that people like her could only ever dream of. And yeah, really random homeless dude. But and it would be because of, like, some of it would honestly be because I was sort of freed from being associated with those people, and like constantly trying to seek after their approval, which would have limited me. But also some of it's just because of like who I am as a person. And, you know, you got to learn to value that kind of stuff. And it's really hard at times to do that. To be able to look yourself in the mirror and be like, no, that person was wrong. You know, they were wrong when it came to determining my value as a person, you know. I was in the, what's that character's name? Stuart Smalley. I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. You know, it's almost like that. You got to be able to tell yourself that sort of stuff. I sort of realized the silver lining in all this because, I mean, you stick with a girl who's cheating on you, you stay with her. I mean, like, where are you going to end up in a few years? Where are you going to end up in a few months? What is that going to look like, you know? Whereas she dumps you, you're free to that. Now you can take all that time and energy and put it towards other things, whether it's art, or it's learning to do game programming, or it's getting certifications, or getting a decent job, making that money, getting yourself in much better shape, going off on some adventure, you know? Especially if you live in an area where you can actually go out and see the wilderness, see the wilds, you know? So, gotta try to find the silver lining. So, anyways, I've gone on long enough with this rambling. It's day 14 of Nofap, and I'm gonna head back in and chug some coffee and try to get as much done as I can tonight. So, anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you folks around. Bye-bye.